out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd. Buy me some peanuts.
And welcome to the Baby Boomer Report. I have a friend of mine. I think you've heard of him, Russell Dent. Maybe you don't know the Russell part.
Deep to left.
Yeah.
About effing.
Deep to left. Bucky Dent is with us, and what an honor and a pleasure to be with you, my brother. And for full transparency, we go back a long way. Played against each other in high school, and
now we're baby boomers.
Yeah, and now we're baby boomers. Hard to believe, right?
It is, man. I just went to my 50th high school reunion, 50 years. I was like, oh my God, but it was fun to see a bunch of the guys. I mean, the big football players, they've all shrunk down, and hear the old stories. They get better every time.
Oh man, the older we get, the stories get more involved, right?
I'm telling you, you were busting my chops a few minutes ago about my home run. You said it just scraped the wall, and I said, no, it was over the net.
It had green paint on it, man. It had green paint on it.
Get out.
We have so many stories to get into. First of all, you talk about football, and I don't think people realize that. So Bucky played at Hialeah High School in Hialeah, Florida. I was at a neighboring all-boys Catholic school, Archbishop Curley High School. Hialeah always had, just great athletes, great teams. You were a heck of a football player. You were a running back, fullback at the time, and I know that there was some little kind of a thought in there. Well, maybe I can play, college, because I know you're a huge University of Miami football fan, but it was baseball that ultimately led you to a life that you still lead today.
Yeah, football was my love. I actually started right down the street. I brought one of the pictures for you. I started at Barry University, and I just loved it all the way up until high school in my senior year, and I felt like I had to make a decision in my senior year, and back then we played all the sports. We played football, baseball, basketball, and I think that's important for kids today to understand that you really need to play more than one. But, I love football, and I didn't really make my decision until my senior year. I'd went on some recruiting trips, and just came back and said, man, these guys are awful big. I don't know how, I don't know if I want to play football. And we had a chance to win a state championship in baseball that year.
Right.
And we did.
Yeah.
And so my brother told me, get your glove, go play. And basically all the baseball teams thought I was going to play football. So I didn't get drafted till late. And then Dr. Maneri from Dade North came, and Charlie Green from Dade South, they started recruiting me, and so I decided to go to Dade North. I said, I'm going to get rid of my football career, and I'm just going to go play baseball, and I think I made a wise decision.
It was interesting that we had parallel paths in that you're 68. And I'm 69. There was that year gap. I was drafted by the Astros, and then ultimately decided to go my career. Mm-hmm. And you were drafted, and you decided to go college, and you go to probably the number one, the quintessential college baseball coach in all of junior college baseball history, in Demi Maneri. And you wound up playing there with who would be your Yankee teammate in Mickey Rivers.
Well, he was a year ahead of me.
Yeah.
But I played with some great players, and Steve Carlton was ahead of me. Mickey Rivers was ahead of me. But I did play with guys like Glenn Borgman, Ray Bear, some just outstanding players. And I really didn't know much about Dr. Maneri until I started being recruited, and then people started telling me about him, what a great baseball program, and then going over there and watching him a little bit before I went there and seeing those guys, and they got beat actually in the playoffs by Manatee, but he was, just a fiery guy, a legend of a baseball man, and I feel honored I got a chance to play for him because he was something else. He didn't take anything. You played baseball the way it was supposed to be played, or he was going to let you know about it. And he kind of helped groom my career, as far as going on. He made you understand, what it was going to take to be a professional baseball player, and I just loved him.
Where is it in your life and in your career, Buck, that you sort of said, all right, I know you made that decision in your senior year of hhigh school, but, you were brought up, you had it wasn't the easiest of childhoods, going through what you were going through, maybe if you want to share some of that. But you always seem to find that little angel on your shoulder or that mentor that seemed to guide you. Can you kind of give us that roadmap?
Well, my brother got me introduced to sports when I was young. He was an athlete. He played at Miami Jackson High School, and he was a four-sport. And he's the guy that made me love the game, and he's the guy that made me tough, as far as playing sports. I mean, he was a tough guy himself, but I just fell in love with it. And sports, as you know, kept me in a direction of staying in the right direction, so to speak. I could have went off because my older brother and myself were given to my aunt, uncle, and my grandmother to bring to Florida. We moved to Florida from Georgia, so they brought us with them, and I was raised by them in Miami, Hialeah, in that area. And, so sports kept me with a foundation of, it taught me a discipline, it taught me a work ethic, and it was my love. And it was something that I wanted to do. But as you know, in sports, there's a lot of negative things. You're too small. You're too slow. You don't have a good arm. And you have to overcome all of that.
You heard a lot of that.
I heard a lot of that, growing up. You're too small to be a running back, or, you're too small for this, or you don't have a good enough arm, or, and you hear a lot of that about that. But you have to knock that little guy off your shoulder that's whispering in your ear, hey, you can't do that. You got to get them off your shoulder. And that's what I tell kids today. You're going to hear a lot of negative things in sports, and you have to stay focused. And I think, being in sports and staying focused and being determined to be a professional athlete is what kept me going. When
you reflect back to that time, okay, and here you are, your football uniform at Barry, you were playing youth football, and you're playing now junior college baseball. In your wildest dreams, when you reflect back, did you ever think you would be part of what people referred to as the Bronx Zoo, playing on the biggest stage in all of baseball with the pinstripes? But the travel to get there was interesting. But to find yourself on that stage, do you ever go, how in the world did that happen?
A dream. I remember in elementary school, and back then the World Series played in the daytime.
Afternoon.
Yeah.
You had the transistor radio in the book.
Well, I was in class a lot.
Right.
And the teacher would come in and say, okay, if you guys are good, I'll turn the game on and let you watch. And I fell in love with the Yankees and Mickey Mantle.
And who didn't love Mickey Mantle?
Oh, man, I was him in the backyard. Nobody else could be him, and, you come up with the bases loaded and, 3-2 count and hit one in the trees for a home run, in the backyard with the kids. And I think...
And you had to stand like him. You had to have mimic the exact stance.
Absolutely. You had to be a switch hitter, too.
Yeah.
Which I wasn't.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I tried, But, that dream got envisioned in my brain to where I just wanted to be a professional athlete. And when I changed to baseball, that dream become stronger. And then I wanted to be a New York Yankee. I was playing with the White Sox.
Oh, I know.
White Sox, but I wanted to be a Yankee. And I remember the first time that I met Mickey Mantle was with Gossage. We made the All-Star team in 1975. We go to the All-Star game, and the night before we were going out to dinner. And we go to this restaurant, and we're chatting and laughing and giggling. And so I just opened the door, and I said, go ahead, go on in. Goose stopped at the door, and he looked at me, and I go, what's the matter? And he goes, look. And I looked around the corner, and it was Mantle and Billy Martin standing right there. And all the flashbacks that you're talking about, they're going, do, Mantle was your kid, watch him on TV. And I just got like hot flashes. And like, we walked in and me and Goose go like, Mr. Mantle, he's Rich Gossage, I'm Bucky Dent. And he goes, I know who you guys are, because he was the captain of the American League team that year.
Yeah.
But I mean, your legs get weak,
Oh, trust me.
Yeah.
We're going to go to a break in a second. Let me just refresh you on a story. I'm at Fort Lauderdale. I'm behind the batting cage, and my arms are up on the batting cage watching, and my elbow hits another elbow. And I look over, and it's Mantle. And I'm thinking to myself, just don't be Ralph Cramden. Don't be homina. Don't do that.
Well, I did that.
Yeah. So I look over to Mantle, and Mantle goes, Tony, how the heck are you? I go, pardon me? He goes, me and Whitey, the guys, we watch you every night. I went, dang, there
you go.
I strutted out of there like I was 8 feet tall. We're going to be right back. We're talking to Bucky Dent. We have so many great stories to share right here on the Baby Boomer Report. Welcome back to the Baby Boomer Report. We're talking to Bucky Dent, and just some great stories. So you find yourself in a restaurant, Goose Gossage. You got Mickey Mantle, who you're pulling your own Ralph Cramden on, and Billy Martin, who would wind up ultimately being your manager.
Yep.
What was that first meeting and that first moment like? At what point did the nervousness become, oh, he's just one of the guys with me, and I'll toss back a couple of drinks? It never did.
No, it never did. Me and Goose talked about it about 2 weeks ago when we were up doing an event. It was like, oh my God, this Mickey Mantle. I mean, you just you don't know what to say to him because he's bigger than life, really, you know. But he was a captain, and as we got a chance to be around him in the All-Star game and stuff like that, you get to know him. And Hank Aaron was the captain of the other team, but of course I played against him because he was, with the Brewers when I first came up. But Mick was just, I mean, he was like bigger than anything. And as I got to meet him when I got traded over to the Yankees, and I got to know him a little bit better. I mean, he was just a great guy, I mean, he had unbelievable sense of humor, and he was Mick, Mick.
Interesting. He once told me, and I've shared this story many times. He once told me, he goes, the Yankees really want me to be a hitting coach for them. They really want me to be a hitting coach. He goes, and I've tried. He goes, I just can't. He goes, I was so blessed and so fortunate that everything I did came naturally to me. And to try to explain that, to try to teach that, to try to coach that to young kids, to young men, is very difficult for me because their hands weren't moving as fast or they didn't see the ball like I saw it. That's why a Charlie Lau, who hit 235, was such a great hitting instructor compared to somebody like Mickey Mantle.
Well, I think Ted Williams went through that a little bit also, where he was so great at what he did that he had a little bit of a problem communicating it to guys like us, because we weren't as gifted as them, But Mickey was just so good from both sides of the plate, and he was so graceful in the outfield, and he ran like a deer the first base, So I'm sure that he had problems, and I learned that at a young age also when I started my baseball school about teaching, that I had great infield coaches that communicated well, and I started teaching at my school, and I fell in love with it, and I had to learn to communicate with a 10-year-old and a 16-year-old, then a college player, then a major league player. So there were different levels of communication, but you try to learn as much as you can. And like I said, I had a tremendous infield instructor when I was young.
Yeah.
A guy named Al Minchek, who I thought was one of the best. He taught me all the things about my hands, about positioning, and little things, that, and I tried to pass that on because actually the first major league player I ever saw was Danny Pfister when I was over in Hollywood. And he was with the Kansas City Royals, and he came out and he started coaching us. And so as I got into pro sports, I had a little bit of a passion of teaching. So I got into the teaching kids, and I wound up having one of the biggest baseball schools.
Well, you have to work at it. I mean, you listen. You were a great athlete, but it didn't come, a lot of it didn't come natural. There was a lot of work. I remember Wes talking one time, and you going, "Yeah, I would take 250, 500 ball grounders a day,
right,
just to practice." Where some of the guys with the natural ability would take 25, and then you go, "Okay, we're calling it a day."
Right, but when you're trying to master what you're doing, that's what you do. You work harder, and I watched guys, when I was in the minor leagues. I watched, when I went to my first major league camp, I watched guys, how they practice. And every time somebody would say something, you would listen, and you would process it. And, like I said, I was fortunate. I played for a great guy in the minor leagues, a guy named Joe Sparks. I played 3 years, was a great teacher. And then when I went to Chicago, Al Minchek, I thought was one of the just phenomenal infield coach, and then, of course, Chuck Tanner. So you pick that out, and then, you go and you start working with kids, and you got to learn to communicate with them and say, this is the way it's done. And, I had Charlie Lau for a hitting coach, and he's actually the first true hitting coach that I ever had. You know,
He was a special guy.
You know, teaching, you know, was, you know, like when I went to the big leagues, I had, you know, Al Monchek, but we really didn't have a hitting coach. You kind of did it on your own. You know, they would make little comments to, you know, like get your, you know, elbow down, or, you know, spread your feet out, just little stuff. And we didn't have batting cages, and we didn't do all the stuff the guys do today. You kind of like, you know, figured it out. You listened and you tried to do it on your own. I remember one day in spring training, I was sitting next to Dick Allen. He had just hit a triple off of Terry Forster, and Terry Forster threw about 100 miles an hour. And back then in the practice fields, the backdrop wasn't very high.
Yeah.
So you really had to look. And I go, and he just hit a triple, and he sits down. I go, Dick, I said, how the heck did you see that ball? And he just quietly looked at me. He goes, Rook, you got to look a little harder. And I was like, okay, I'll look a little harder then, you know. But that's kind of like what they said to you, you know.
Yeah.
But you kind of figured it out on your own.
Yeah.
Because we didn't really have the coaching that they have today.
Right. And one more thing, you know, you were talking about Mantle. I'm just going to just reflect back and how you wound up learning how to hit. Do you realize how such a big life where how many athletes do you know? Great athletes do you know? All you have to do is mention their number and you know who they are.
Oh,
right? 7.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they did a TV. Seinfeld did an entire episode on naming a child. 7, 13, Marino, 32, Jim Brown. All you have to do is mention those 3 right there, and you know who they are. That's bigger than life.
19. Johnny Unitas.
Yeah,
I mean, he's
exactly.
the guy that I, you know, was the big guy, and then came along Joe Namath.
Right.
You know,
right.
But
20, Bucky Dent.
Yeah.
30,
Maury Wills. You know, but I was 30 in Chicago, and then I became 20, and nobody knows, I don't think, but when I went to the Yankees, I got traded over there. Reggie was 20 in spring training, and then when he left spring training, he took 44, and then when I got traded over there, I wound up taking 20. But numbers and you know, guys, you just, you know, I feel fortunate that I played against some just great players.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, Pete Rose and, you know, Carlton and guys like that, and Bob Gibson. And, you know, I remember as a rookie, the first time I ever faced Bob Gibson, going over to play the
Your
Cardinals.
knees must have been knocking.
No, I heard the stories about them saying, don't dig in when you get in there, or he's going to drill you. So I remember getting in the box, just putting one foot down. I never looked up, you know, and he threw me a little flat slider, and I hit it over the third base bag, and I got to second, and I didn't look up at him. I just kept my head down because I said, I don't want him to drill me next time up, you know. But that's the way it was, you know. They told you stories like that, you know.
Yeah.
And, just, you know, and that's the way it was. And, you know, I mean, but you get an opportunity to do that, and those things don't ever go away.
He dreams about being a Yankee. We're going to find out what it was like the first time he stepped into the batter's box as a Yankee, wearing that pinstripe and having Bob Shepard go, now hitting number 20, Bucky Dent. We'll be right back on the Baby Boomer Report. Welcome back to the Baby Boomer Report. With the Yankees, and now in comes the Bronx Zoo. In comes this influx of characters. I mean, you've got the characters beyond characters. All great ball players, but you've got Thurman, and you've got Reggie, and you got Mickey Rivers. I mean, you got Goose Gossage. Shall I go on? You have Bucky Dent. I mean, you Nettles, Piniella.
Pinella. Ooh, I could tell you some good ones about him.
Yeah, well, we're here. We have time.
He was one of my all-time favorite funny guys. I mean, he could go off in a minute. But yeah, you're talking about a bunch of characters that had character. You know, they were characters off the field, but on the field, believe it or not, it was all business. When you went between the lines, you better play the game the right way, because they were all professionals. And we had guys like Munson and Nettles and Piniella and guys like that if you weren't playing up to they would say something to you.
Right.
You know, the manners, that's the way the old school was, you know. And when I first came over to New York, they always said, you know, there was a rule that you're messing with my money if you don't play the game the right way. And it was because when you win the World Series back then, it meant more money for you, you know, because we weren't paid a lot of money, you know. And so that bonus check at the end of the year helped you, so you didn't really have to work in the wintertime. So that's what that was about.
Right. But God, there's so many stories here. We go back so long. I want to just reflect on one real quick. So Bucky has already won the MVP of the World Series, and this was after the home run. And if I'm not mistaken, they're now starting to platoon you with Stick Michael, right?
No.
They were G. Michael. Who were they platooning you with?
Roy Smalley.
Roy Smalley.
In 1982.
Right. So I get a call from Bucky, and he says to me, "You're not going to believe what happened to me." And I'm going to tell the story, and I want you to tell it to me. You get pretty upset that you're being platooned, and you called your wife at the time, and you're in the clubhouse, and you pack in your bags, and you go, "I'm going to leave the team." And you look on the monitor, and as you're telling her the story, it was the game that Billy Martin ran out to right field and started screaming and yelling at Reggie Jackson, and they started having a fight in the middle of the right field, and you hung up from your wife and said, "It's not going to matter if I leave right now. No one's going to care." Can you kind of reflect on that?
That was in 77.
77,
yeah, 77 when Billy took Reggie out of right for not hustling after a ball.
Right.
And, Billy when I played in Chicago, I didn't get pitch hit very much for it unless Chuck needed a home run. He would pinch hit for me. So now I come to New York, and I think I had been pinch hit for like 30 times at the time. And he pinch hit for me in the 7th inning of that game, and I just really lost it. I just said I had enough. So I ran up the tunnel, and I got dressed, and that's what happened. I called you, and I said, I've had enough of this guy. I'm leaving, And then all of a sudden, we go back to the monitor, in walks Fran Healy, and he goes, "Something's going on out there." He says, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm leaving." He goes, "You can't. You got to wait." And all of a sudden, you hear this commotion, and here comes Reggie running up the tunnel. And he comes in, he goes, "Did you see what that guy just did to me?" And he throws his glove, and he's ranting and raving. He goes, "Where are you going?" I go, "I'm leaving." He goes, "You can't leave. I'm leaving." So Fran Healy goes, both of you just get dressed, because it's going to be a big deal and stuff like that. And I found out later on that if I would have left, that, it wouldn't have been Reggie's fault if George would have fired Billy. So, there was maybe a little blessing. But, that's what happened in that game. A lot of people don't know that, but I was already in the clubhouse. I'd had enough. I said, enough is enough.
What was it like? What was it like being a part of those characters who really, on the field, it was just all business? Like you said, this is my money. We're all playing for each other here, right?
Right.
And we want the money. Little did we know that if we fast forward to 2019, that you could get a $394 million.
Son of a gun. I'm a baby boomer.
That's not so bad.
Yeah.
But being a part of that group I remember walking in the clubhouse and just it was mayhem. I mean, it could be crazy.
The fun part of that group was off the field.
Yeah.
In the clubhouse, on the bus. If you screwed up, don't get on the bus because they would eat you alive.
Yeah.
And all it would take is sometimes, like we play an afternoon Sunday game and everybody be tired, would get on the bus. And all it would take, everybody be a little quiet, and all it would take would be like Piniella going, or Catfish would go to Piniella. "Hey, Lou, how's your hair smell?" Because Lou had a habit of kind of like, pulling on his hair and stuff, and that's all it would take. And then they would go, "Here we go." Piniella is after Catfish, Mickey's after Catfish, and Piniella. I mean, it would just start, and that was the fun part. Those guys, were just funny characters, and, but they made you play. They made you play the game.
All right, so I'm going to give you some names, then give me some, quick thoughts on them. Reggie Jackson.
Big time player. Big time player. He was. That's why they call him Mr. October. Because he loved the spotlight, and he was a big time player.
Thurman Munson.
Stud. I mean, just tough. I'm so sorry that he didn't get into the Hall of Fame this last vote because, his career got cut short, but he was one of those guys that played hurt. He was the captain, and he had a great sense of humor of trying to get you to play, like if you were down. Like, I remember one time I was standing by the cage and I was struggling a little bit, and in a sarcastic way, he walked over to me and he looked at me and he goes, "Are you trying?" And smoke came out of my ears, and he started laughing. you know? But that was a way that he sarcastically would like turn it on you to get you like, to wake up.
Yeah.
But he was just a great player.
Lou Piniella.
One of the toughest guys. I mean, hated to lose. He was funny at times because of his temper. I mean, I remember one time we were playing in Seattle and Guidry was pitching, and he had just made the last out or something, and we were changing sides, and the Chicken was there, the San Diego Chicken. And Guidry walked out to the mound, and the Chicken had the ball in his hand, and Guidry put his hand out, and the Chicken dropped it. And Piniella looked at him and saw him. He took his glove and fired at him and hit the Chicken right in the tail. And the Chicken takes off running. And about 4 innings later, losing left, and the Chicken comes out with a white towel, and he's waving it at him, And Lou starts screaming out, and the crowd's going crazy, But Lou was like, he's got some of the greatest stories that you ever want to know. And actually, he was telling us one I'm going to tell you right now at Old Timers this year about when he became a Yankee. He got traded, and he was so excited, and he gets to spring training a couple days early, and he goes in George's office, and he's sitting outside. And so George walks out and he says, hey Lou, how you doing? Mr. Steinbrenner, I'm so glad to be here. I'm early, and I can't wait to get to work. And George looked at him. He goes, that's great, Lou, but he says, your hair's a little bit long, He says, you need to get that cut. Lou goes, wait a minute. He says, Jesus Christ had long hair. And George looked at him. He goes, okay, come here. He took him and they walked across the parking lot to this pond. And he looked at Lou and said, now, if you can walk across this pond like Jesus Christ, you can keep your hair long. And we flipped. I
goodness.
I couldn't believe it.
That is a great story.
That was one of the greatest stories I ever heard.
That is a great story.
That's when, he became a Yankee.
Well, we're gonna continue this name thing. Well, we're gonna go to this quick break, but before we do, one more Steinbrenner story. He wants to get Ron Frazier as his new manager. Ron Frazier at the time, head baseball coach at the University of Miami. So Ron Frazier's at practice, and Ron Frazier's in his orange shorts with a whistle around his neck and his University of Miami hat on, and limo pulls up at the University of Miami campus, and 2 men come out, and Coach Frazier looks at him and said, can I help you? He goes, yes, Mr. Steinbrenner would like to see you. He says, as in George? He goes, yeah. So he says, well, let me finish practice. Finishes practice, and the guys escort Coach Frazier into the limo. He's looking around, looking outside, and he thinks he's going to some hotel or whatever, and next thing you know, the limo pulls up at a private airport, and the gentlemen get out, and they take Coach Frazier onto a Learjet, and the Learjet flies to New York. Another limo picks him up and brings him in. There's his name, Ron Frazier, manager, New York Yankees. Goes in to meet Steinbrenner. Steinbrenner gives him the pitch. Coach Frazier says, thank you, but I want to stay in Miami. My children are there. My girls are there. Steinbrenner goes, is that your final answer? He goes, yep. Steinbrenner gets up and he walks out. So Coach Frazier's sitting there thinking he's going to come back. He's still got his whistle around his neck. Coach Frazier goes out and says to the secretary, is Mr. Steinbrenner coming back? And she goes, no. He goes, well, how am I getting home? She goes, I don't know. I guess you'll have to book a flight.
Oh, my God. Really?
With his orange shorts, whistle around his neck, and his University of Miami baseball hat on. George Steinbrenner. We'll be right back on the Baby Boomer Report. Welcome back to the Baby Boomer Report, talking to Bucky Dent. Well, we've gotten to that time in the interview where we have to talk about that moment. And every athlete dreams. You're a dreamer. And I think it's so important, and I know you talk to young athletes all the time. It's so important to have that dream, but it's so important to really live that dream, but to vividly have that dream. I talk about that to my children all the time. It just can't be a dream. It's got to be vivid. Mm-hmm. And with that comes the moment. The moment that will define your career, your life, whatever that moment might be. And you find yourself in that moment at Fenway Park in a one-game playoff.
So I've always said sports is a game of moments. And, like you just said, we go back to when we were in the backyard playing and, you're hitting a big home run. And now all of a sudden, here I am in Fenway Park in one of the greatest games ever played. And, I'm in the 7th inning. But going back before the game started, my homie Mickey Rivers was standing by the cage, and I was struggling a little bit. So I said, "Hey, homie, I need to use your bat. Can I use your bat?" He goes, "Yeah, go ahead." So I started hitting with it. Well, I cracked it under the tape, just a little hairline crack. So in the 7th inning, when I came up and I fouled the ball off my foot, I didn't wear my guard that day, and I had had a blood clot, and I'd missed a lot of the year with a blood clot because I fouled the ball off, and we didn't have guards, but I had made a bootleg guard where I'd cut off a shin guard of a little leaguer and put some foam up there, but I didn't wear it because it was only a 1-game playoff. So when I went back and they're spraying the stuff on, we only had 24 guys that day. Randolph had a hamstring pull, so he couldn't play. So I knew I had to play, and it was hurting. They're spraying the stuff, and when I was standing there, I heard Mickey go, "Hey, homie, you got the wrong bat. The one you got's cracked." I really wasn't paying attention. So I started up to home plate, and the bat boy came up and said, "Mickey said, you got the wrong bat. Take this one." And I got back in the box, and the first pitch Torres threw me, I hit it really good, but I didn't know if it was going to get out, and I didn't see the ball go out because there was a shadow. So I rounded first, and I saw the second base umpire signal was a home run, and then I remember how quiet Fenway was when I rounded going to third base and coming home.
So, I mean, when you hit it, you didn't think.
I didn't know it was going to go out. I hit it on a line.
Yeah.
I hit it on a line. And I did see Yastrzemski's knees buckle at the wall, but I remember how quiet Fenway was when I got to home. And then I got out to third base, and people were saying, "Well, what were you thinking when you were rounding first or in second?" I said, "We're ahead. That's it. 'Cause we had 3 more innings to go."
Yeah.
And not till everything was completely over. The home run, the World Series MVP, that I got home, and I got a call from one of my dearest friends, a guy from 60 Minutes, told me I was going to get traded, Joe Illigas. He called me and he says, "Bucky," he says, "do you know something?" He says, "That home run you hit in Boston going to change your life." And I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Believe me, just remember when I say it's going to change your life." And
it gave you a new middle name.
It gave me a new middle name for sure. But
for those who may not know, and we're going to be, this is a family podcast, but he did it against the Red Sox. So if you're anywhere in New England and you mention his name, it's spelled Bucky with the middle initial is an F
and an
N, and your real middle name isn't that.
No, but it's that in Boston.
It sure is.
Yeah, but he told me that, and I didn't realize it until years later. Where
really, it took you that long?
Yeah, because it was like, we played in one of the greatest games ever played. I don't think you'll ever see a game like that anymore because we're playing for the division title. Two teams, Boston,
probably the most storied, rivalry in all of baseball.
Yeah, 1-game playoff. They hated each other. The fighting and this and that and the other was very intense. In the two cities, Boston and New York, but you flash back to where you're in the backyard and you dream of those moments. And now it happens to you, and you go, "Wow, they do come true." This all does happen. Mm-hmm. And
but still, it was a tough road. That year, you're on the disabled list for half the year because you're not healthy. I mean, and you got to be thinking, "Goodness me, I want to get back and play." I mean, you're here in South Florida. We're spending time together. It's like, and we're watching the games. You're going, "I want to go play."
Yeah. And then there was a lot happening that year, too. Not only was I hurt, but, Billy got fired.
Right.
The papers were on strike.
Yep.
We came from so far behind.
Yep.
There was a whole lot of things going on that year, and I also have made the comment that if Billy was the manager that day, I probably wouldn't have hit. He probably
really?
would have pinch hit for me instead of Doyle. And, so there's a lot of blessings in this, and that's the thing, that we go on our faith.
Yeah.
And, I was in a situation where every dream that I had as a kid came true. And that's what it's all about.
It really is.
It is.
It truly is.
Yeah.
And you embrace that moment in such a classy way, and because while you may not have known at the time the significance of it, after the game, just that one moment, the way the press and everything came down on, came to you, because that was it. That was the defining moment of that game, because right after that, you've got 9 more outs that you give the Red Sox, and that's it, and it's over, and you're in the World Series, and then you continue this hot streak to get the MVP.
Right.
And you marry that with, you were the, excuse me there, microphone, you were the media darling. I mean, everything fell, it was a perfect storm.
Right. But, the other thing that I get flashbacks of is the last pitch of the game, Gossage against Yastrzemski. And I'm standing at shortstop, and people are going, "What are you thinking when you're standing at shortstop?" And I'm going, "Don't hit the ball to me."
I've had debates to people like that. I said, I don't care who you're talking to. There's not a guy who's a little part of their brain going, "Please, no. Yeah.
No, but I knew that I would catch it. But there's another story a lot of people don't know is when Goose reached back, and I had the perfect view because I was standing right behind him. He had a knack of getting a little extra.
Right.
And he reached back, and the fastball just jumped. And Nettles didn't like to catch pop-ups. Most of the time, I would catch the pop-ups.
Why?
He just didn't like catching them. So Yastrzemski pops the ball up to third base. And when he popped it up, I started over there. I looked up, but I felt something in my arm. I thought I had a bug in my shirt. So I see Nettles going to catch it. I looked down, and my metal had broke, and the chain was running out. Oh. So I'm pulling the chain out, and I'm looking, okay, Nettles has got this. He caught it. I look down. I'm trying to find my metal. So now I run over there because I'm not in the picture of everybody.
Right.
Because I'm on the field looking for my doggone metal. So now we run in the clubhouse, and we go down in there, and everybody's going crazy. And I go back on the field. And I'm looking around trying to find my medal. They ask me, I'm trying to get the ball out of the net. There's too many up there. Mm-hmm. So I go back in, and I go, crap, I lost my medal. I take my shirt off. All of a sudden, I go, wait a minute. I looked, the medal had fallen in my cup. And I got it out, and I was like, oh, yeah, I'm still blessed. And then I go in the training room, and the place is crazy. Bang on the door. We're all in there laughing. Guidry and Nettles and Munson, we're all in there, and they open the door, and it's George. I open the door, and I look at him, and George goes, I told you it was going to be your day. And I go, yeah, but if I'd have struck out, you'd have traded my ass.
And he probably acknowledged it and said, you're right.
You're right. Yeah, you're right. But those were, that was a great game. Those were great players. And
what an anniversary. To this day, I'm awakened every morning on the anniversary. Well, every morning we talk anyway, but I'm awakened on the anniversary going deep to left. And then we always we always joke about that.
That's it. Bill White, deep to left.
Yeah, that's right.
And but you just you have moments like that, and you play with great players and in a great organization like the New York Yankees, and it all those childhood dreams where you're sitting there and they come true, and you just go, wow, I was truly blessed, and I got an opportunity to fulfill all those.
Yeah, how cool is that?
Mm-hmm.
And now you find yourself, and we're going to end this by saying, you've kept active. Mm-hmm. You really have maintained while a baby boomer, you're not letting grass grow under your seat. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing and how baby boomers can understand that being 68, 69, 77, go on, you can be of value and you can be productive.
Absolutely. I coached up until 2007, and when I retired in 2007, I just said, I'm going to go and enjoy life and do the things that I want to do. And the one thing, because being an athlete like you, mm-hmm. I love to walk. I can't run anymore, and I can't play golf because I got a bad back like we all do.
Yeah.
So I don't do that anymore. But I just got married.
Yeah, I know.
A beautiful lady who's sitting right over there.
Angie, she's a sweetheart. What a doll.
We love to walk. We love to travel. We just went to Italy for 2 weeks, and I like to stay busy. I still am active with the Yankees.
Yep, you're still doing stuff. Mm-hmm. Tell us what you're doing for them.
I just do a lot of corporate stuff for them. I go up to the stadium and do a lot of signings in the suites, mm-hmm. along with Mickey Rivers and Goose. Well, Goose he's banned right now.
Yeah, I heard about that.
A lot of other guys. I see Guidry and then we go to old timers. But I really try and stay active. We do a lot of walking. I take Pilates, for mm-hmm. my back, and I just really just stay busy. We
Yeah.
love to hunt.
Yeah.
Go hunting.
Still
we just
go
got back
hunting,
from
yeah.
deer hunting.
Yeah,
You know,
that's great.
But
That's great.
That's what it's all about.
And a man of faith that still
I
believes
am.
in all of that, which
Yep.
is a great way to live. But
Yep.
well, what a pleasure! It's he and I spent a lot of time together, and we still do, and we're dear friends. And for the full transparency, and yes, I wish he would be getting that $394 million contract now that the Yankees just signed. We're doing this interview on December 12th, and the guy was signed yesterday.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jeez, man, oh man, you look at that and. You look at Marvin Miller. He just got in, and I was looking at a thing where the first year that he took over, the salary was $19,000, and I think his last year it was $240, and now the minimum salary is $4 million.
Yeah.
So I could be making $4 million sitting on the bench.
With that, we want to thank Bucky Dent. It's as always.
Buddy, it's always great, man.
Always great.
Love
man.
you, and
Love you
for
more.
being a good friend for all these years. And we're baby boomers, pal.
We're baby boomers.
But we're marching into it good.
Yeah, we are. Hey, we go back so far. He called me one day and he goes, "I think I'm going to start meditating before I go up to the plate."
I did that too.
I know you did. All right, thanks a lot, Buck.
You're welcome.
Thank you for tuning into the Baby Boomer Report. Stay with us because we're going to have a lot more great guests as we make it down the line.